Hello game trollers and welcome to a new video and welcome to a special video. Today I'm going to be doing a review slash ranking of my favorite series of Doctor Who and just a really good season of television in general. We're going to be covering series 3. So yes, mostly just like a ranking, just like least favorite to favorite episode, and sort of giving a pros and cons of each one, just to say what I liked and didn't like about them. So yeah, I might do this for other series. Kind of depends on my investment, really. I kind of already did one for series 12. I might go back and do like series 1 and series 2 and all of them. I don't know, but yeah, series 3, and we're gonna be covering my least favorite episode of series 3. There, I said it. And it's oddly enough, even amongst circles of people who don't even like Series 3 that much, I think this is a highly rated episode. My least favorite episode, at the 9th spot, we got Shakespeare Code. Shakespeare Code is one of those episodes that I've just never really gotten. You know, like it's never clicked with me. It's, you know, even though it's for some reason really popular sometimes. Like, it's up there with, like, God Complex and, like, Demons of the Punjab and the Zygon 2-parter. I just think it's just bad. But for some reason, everybody loves it because of the speech. I don't even like the speech, but that's a whole thing on its own. So, I'm going to be starting off with the cons, what I didn't like about the episode, just to kind of justify it. So one thing that I've never been keen on with this episode is the fact that they try to, like, assimilate the Shakespearean style, you know, like how all the characters act and they talk and stuff. It feels very like they wrote it to be like a tribute to Shakespeare, and I don't typically like with that when they do it in Doctor Who, like a gimmicky kind of episode where they kind of try to, you know, change it up and try to copy or do something else, you know. Another episode that I also don't like, that's also in a Tenet series, is Unicorn and the Wasp, and in that one they try to do the Agatha Christie style, and I'm just not. I don't think it worked really well. Like Tennant and Catherine Tate, they really tried their best to like really, you know, like both of these episodes. I'll just get that out of the way. Both of those episodes really funny. They have really amazing humor, but for some reason it's just like the actual style they go with, like, you know, like the whole interrogation scene at the end of that episode, and sort of the feeding the Carrionites scene here of like Shakespeare, like you're a man of words, hit him, blah blah blah, and like him doing the whole like spiel, and then the weird Harry Potter line, which I also don't like Harry Potter, and this episode also has a little bit of Harry Potter influence in it too. So yeah, it's like it's got that Shakespearean like grandeur and like just extraness to it, and like the Harry Potter kind of whimsical vibe going on, and I just am not connecting. I just don't connect with that at all. So yeah, yeah. So I'm just not huge on that kind of, just it doesn't work for me personally, and also kind of combined with that, I also just cannot stand the Carrionites. They are probably, I'm not gonna say like top, like bottom 10, but like they're at least my least favorite villain in just the series in general. I am not huge on the Carrionites at all. They're really annoying. Like the other two, I don't think even have any dialogue, and the main girl, she's just really frustrating. So that's like the opening scene when she's like doing the whole like, hey, come up here, and then like she just like goes psycho and just they kill him and stuff. I was just not really big on her. She was just, yeah, she was like extra but not in a fun way. You know, like, yeah, your villains are like extra, you know, like obviously the Master, like, you know, Sim and Dewan, they're super extra, right? You have the guy from Rise of the Cybermen who is the most extra. Like, he's so just too dramatic, you know, just from beyond the grave. But like here it just didn't work. I just don't like the Carrionites, and they're like whole, like, it's an interesting concept of like, it's a science that they, but it's like a kind of, it's like a science thing that they use, like words and like the sound and shape and blah 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 of words can manipulate stuff. That's an interesting concept, but I don't think it was well integrated in the story. Well, I mean, like, it was integrated well. I just didn't like how it was integrated with like the whole "I name you Carrionite" and then that like pushing her away, and so I don't know. I was just not big on that in general, of the whole like words power gimmick. In such a like literal sense, it's like literally saying someone's name like can kill them or whatever. I don't know. I wasn't big on that, so I don't like the Carrionites. And I think the biggest issue I have with it, and this is like a complaint most people have of series 3, and I don't agree with it for the most part. The only episode I actually kind of agree with that complaint is in this episode, is the whole Martha rebound girl thing. Like, they focus a little bit too much on like Rose and like Tin's grief of Rose and stuff, and I mean mostly that's just because I didn't like Tin and Rose. I just can't stand them. Like, they're like series 2 I really don't like, and a majority of, like, a big reason for that is just the Tin and Rose dynamic. I just was never a fan of at all. So this episode basically being like, aren't you sad that they're gone? It's like, no, I'm not. And it's not even a good way, like in Heaven Sent, where like I couldn't stand Clara, and like the whole dynamic with her in 12 was just atrocious. But I still, like, it still hit me, Heaven Sent. Whereas this episode was just like, yeah, something from a distant Rose, and friggin' they're on the bed together, and Ten's like, I wish Rose was here. She'd figure this out. It's like, come on, like, are you joking? I was never big on that at all. I just was not into how just they really just sidelined Martha, and I'll give a reason for that later on in this video, of like it just really a big reason why I didn't like that, because especially like other companions, like, they never really do like a whole "oh, I'm sad the companion's gone" episode, like, I don't think they really did. Like, I probably the only one I can think of is like the Snowman, where like they spent a good amount of time on like 11 morning on Amy and Roy, but it wasn't that important necessarily. It was kind of just a bit like down, really. It wasn't like specifically Amy and Rory, that it was like comparing Clara and them. I don't know. Yeah, because like other episodes is like, like 11 wasn't like moaning about, losing Donna, or like basically all the RTD companions during, 11th hour, and like Beast Below and all that. 12, like he basically, like, the only mention of Amy that was like, I wish Amy was here, except for instead of Clara, was the whole joke in Deep Breath. Like, if freaking 13 just never mentions anybody. Like, she literally mentioned not a soul ever. So that's just, so like having an episode like this where basically like you have a new companion and you spend like the companion's like technical first adventure out, like having the Doctor grieve about the previous companion, that just doesn't seem right with me at all. Because like for the remainder, like whenever they do the whole like, oh, 10, like Martha loves 10 but 10 doesn't love Martha, like I don't think they really focus on the fact that like he had feelings for Rose or whatever. It was mostly just like the Doctor doesn't want to be like, in love or whatever, and like he can't feel love like that again or something like that. It's not really specifically Rose, but yeah. But anyways, I mean, this episode I still can enjoy. I don't hate this episode. Like, as I said, it's really funny. It's like the humor is amazing. Like how they do, like I really enjoy the like later on in the show, whenever they have like a black companion or like a person of color as a companion, they always for some reason need to make a serious deal, like, and have like the Doctor react seriously whenever they have a bit of racism. but I enjoyed, at least for the first like black companion, like first proper black companion that like the Doctor actually travels with. Because Mickey, I think the only time you really would have faced a situation like that was Girl in the Fireplace, but he mostly spent his time on the ship. And like Madame de Pompadour wouldn't have time to be racist, considering she was on a spaceship, and it was time travel and all that. She was already just completely just bombarded by craziness that like a black guy just wouldn't bother or whatever. But like here, it's the first time we really get something like that, and I like that they went on a comical level with it. They actually played it off for jokes, like Martha being like, so what is going on here? I'm dressed like this, I'm not exactly white. Like, what's going on? Aren't they gonna like shoot me? And Tinsley, she's like, walk around like you own the place, it'll be fine. And then the whole Queen of the Africs joke later on. A good thing about this episode, another pro, is the whole Shakespeare like, because it reminds me a lot. I think a reason why I enjoy Witchfinder so much is because it probably reminded me of the Shakespeare Martha stuff. So like the King James and Ryan stuff is primo. I really like when they do that. Do that some more. Have Ryan, whoever, have somebody be extremely racist, but at the same time extremely into the companion. That's primo. That's some good stuff right there. So yeah, as I said, it's just a really funny episode for the most part. A couple of jokes I don't think landed. Like, as I said, the Expelliarmus joke I was never into. Mostly because as I said, I'm not a fan of Harry Potter, and it was just kind of weird. It was just like, hey, pop culture reference, here we go. That just, yeah. I as I said, don't really like when they do that. The setting, the actual setting, the sets and all that is really gorgeous. I really like series 3 on a visual standpoint. Is just a really, like, it's almost specific. It has like a really specific color palette. Some episodes change it out a little bit, like specifically Smith and Jones and Lazarus Experiment have a different color palette. So like they're a little bit more like bright, whites and like blues and stuff like that. Whereas most of series 3 is very like hot colors and like browns, like mostly like oranges and browns and stuff like that. So yeah, this episode kind of started that whole like visual style off for this series, and yeah, I just really enjoy like the sets and stuff. They were really good. Like the streets that they go down and stuff was really good too. So I really like the visuals of this episode. They're really nice. And one shot, like I'm not into the carryiness, but one shot I really liked was the whole like her being on the broom and flying away into the night. That was a really neat shot. And last thing I want to say about this episode is I really enjoyed the whole using an unsolved mystery, like historical, like weird, like hole that we just can't fill because it's just weird. I always like when they do that, and I want them to do more of that. Like with the whole Love Labours one, like Shakespeare's missing play, like what where's that, what happened to that, why is it missing, what whatever. And they like play it off in this episode as like the witches took it to like they used the play to basically be like a portal opening ritual thingy, and then when they opened the portal, like the words and like the play itself went into the portal and blah 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 happened, and that's why it's missing now. But obviously you have the whole massive portal opening in the middle of wherever Shakespeare was. But yeah, that's a thing for another time. Like they did again with Agatha Christie. Like I think Gareth Roberts wrote both of those episodes, so obviously that's probably why they're really like similar. But yeah, so and there's another episode that did something like that. I can't remember what it was now, but it had like what was it? I mean, I know Classico, they did it a couple times, like with the Visitation is like how the London fire started, and like the Romans, how like Rome burned down and stuff like. They do that occasionally, like Classico, and they never really make a point out of it. It's kind of just like if you know your history, then you will know what it's referencing. But if you aren't into like that historical like period, or you just don't have the knowledge of it, it's just gonna be a thing, right? And you probably have to look it up afterwards, or like ask your parents if you were like watching as a kid or whatever. Um, so yeah, Classic Who did it occasionally. I know there's another point besides Unicorn and the Wasp where we do something like that, where they have like a thing from history that's like a bit weird, and it's like an unsolved mystery. I can't think of it, but yeah, I really enjoyed how they did that. Always adds a little bit of like, it makes it feel real sci-fi, Yeah, I've always wanted them to do the Battle of Los Angeles, like why like that. If you don't know, the Battle of Los Angeles is, I think, was around, when was it? Was it World War II or the Cold War? When there's like they were on high alert in like that. Yeah, it was World War II because of Pearl Harbor. They were on high alert, like, stressing out over like the Japanese attacking them, and then they saw like this UFO in the sky and like tried shooting it. They try like shooting it down and stuff like that, and it just never worked. They were like, "What's going on?" and it just flies away. I've always wanted Doctor Who to do something about that. Hopefully, we'll get that sometime. I don't know, but anyways, that's Shakespeare Code. As I said, I still enjoy it as an episode. I don't think it's a bad episode by any means. But yeah, it's just one that's never properly clicked for me. So, anyways, now to my 8th spot, and we have the Lazarus Experiment. This is the episode. I think a lot of people like have it as their least favorite episode, and it's the most recent episode I've seen because I watched it like yesterday. The last time I watched it was like when I did my original binge, which was in 2017, around the time Series 10 was coming out. And I hadn't seen it since, so I like forgot a large portion of it, and I think that's the biggest problem with it. Is really just kind of a bit forgettable, which is odd because it's like the one episode that does like the most heavy lifting in terms of like setting up the plot and like the finale and stuff, because you introduce the whole you introduced the whole like Francine like not liking the Doctor gimmick, and having like they really focused a lot on Harold Saxon in this episode specifically, of like having like I think this was the first proper episode to really do like that focus on like Harold Saxon, like setting up the Master and stuff like that. And like having that guy just come up to like Martha's mom being like, hey, that doctor there, he's not that good of a man, and stuff. And then like you also have like in the finale, which I always forget about this until I remember it, and then I forget about it again, how they do the whole the reason why the Master is able to make the Doctor old is because he like reverse engineered Lazarus's like technology of like making people young again to make the Doctor old. I always forget about that, and that's like a neat way to tie this episode in with the finale. So yeah, it falls into like that Fugitive of the Jadoon territory, where they did a lot of heavy lifting and stuff for setting up stuff in the finale, so it doesn't like come out of nowhere, right? But it's kind of opposite to Fugitive of the Jadoon, which is why I think they get like a completely opposite reaction, right? Whereas this episode, it's made as like its own plot, like it has its own story of Lazarus, this guy who does this experiment to make himself young again, and it goes wrong, and he turns into a monster and tries killing people at the party and blah blah blah, and then making the actual like setup for the finale really subtle, or not necessarily really subtle, but like they don't make it like. They don't shout at you. They don't like space it on the screen. Like, remember this episode. Whereas Fugitive of the Jadoon is the exact opposite, where they really hammer home. Like, yes, we're setting things up. We're setting Roof Doctor. What's that? You're gonna have to wait until the finale to figure that out. Jack's back, and he's talking about Cybermen. You're gonna have to wait until the finale. Like, it's doing a lot of like shoving in your face, like all this setup, right? And then they had to like tie in a little loose plot to actually like make it a coherent episode of having like the Jadoon come in looking for a fugitive and the fugitive being Ruth, and that's how you set that up and blah blah blah. They had to like put in a little loose plot and like make it seem like there's a plot when it's really just a setup episode, whereas this episode is a setup episode but it feels like its own independent episode that you don't think about it. So yeah. But yeah, that, I mean, like I really, I have two big gripes with this episode. One is I don't like the Martha's mom thing, where like she's immediately like suspicious of the doctor. Like how, like I get that maybe she thinks like he's doing stuff to Martha or whatever. Like Martha hasn't talked about this guy, and then suddenly like he shows up at the party with her, and like Martha acts like she's known him for a long time, and obviously because of the whole, Doctor Who element, right? There's like, you have an explanation for that where they've been time traveling and going to all these different places, alien worlds and whatnot. And so like you can't like divulge that information without sounding like a psychopath or like revealing like information that just would put the doctor or whoever in danger, right? Even though they do come in danger anyways because it's the master. So yeah, you do understand like maybe she wouldn't be immediately trusting of the doctor, but just the level of animosity she shows towards him even before the Saxon stuff happens is just a bit off. Like I wasn't huge on it. Like maybe they could have had her be a little bit more indifferent or like not as negative, and then once the Saxon stuff starts, like the guy comes up to her, it's like, hey, that doctor there, who's that hanging out with her, blah blah blah. Like once they did that, she could have turned, I feel like that probably would have worked a little bit better for me. And obviously a second big problem, and I think is probably the most insubstantial problem, is I just don't like the monster design, like the actual like design for Lazarus, because I mean, one is just for some reason really atrocious. Like I watched the episode, I'm like, man, like even for 2007, like what, Spider-Man 3 came out that year. It's like, come on, man. It just, like compared to like other stuff in the series that looked a little bit better than that. I can't think specifically because a lot of the effects and stuff were like, like physical. Like the face of Bo, I think, was mostly, a prop, and then the guy, Daleks Sec and stuff, that was a prop and stuff. That was like mostly makeup and whatnot. So I can't think specifically of like a proper like episode where they did an effect. You know what? The Pixie Doctor. There we go. But yeah, it was really just the actual like graphics and stuff was just atrocious. And also I just don't get the actual design itself. Like sure, it's really intimidating. It's like a really good thing about the episode is how like scary it is. It's just a really gruesome, just like you look at that and just fear immediately just instills in you. But it doesn't make much sense. Like it's like the explanation is it's a human evolution didn't pick that like look or whatever for humans or whatever, which doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't explain why they can suck people's energy and have a scorpion design, and like I don't know, it just doesn't make sense when you put it that way. I don't know, it's just a weird, like if they did it more like he looked like a gorilla or something, because for some reason Doctor Who loves doing this thing where they have to make everybody look like an animal. Like if they made him look like more like an ogron or something, or like I don't know, like more of a gorilla primate type looking character, or like at least something that's mammal, like you could have done, like I don't know, the scorpion idea is just a bit far out for me, but yeah, it's just it's a weird design. I don't like the design of the monster, but either way, I mean, as I said, I enjoy that it's like setting up the finale and stuff. It does a lot of that Series one I think is probably the best series in terms of like tying every episode together. Like everything in the finale, for the most part, except for like probably regeneration was and like the whole the weapon that the Doctor was gonna use to kill all the Daleks. I can't remember now, but like besides those two things, I think almost everything else was like set up or like laid, like the foundation was laid for like everything else. Like technically you could predict what was in the finale just by watching the rest of the series. Like the whole Heart of the TARDIS thing was set up in Boomtown. The actual setting of where the finale happens is set up in Long Game. Like the reason why they even like managed to succeed is because of Father's Day, where like they have Rose go back and like kind of change history a little bit, so that once it, in like this episode happens, the finale happens where she's in the TARDIS with Jackie. They have that whole scene about her going and seeing the dad die, which is able to convince Jackie to help. Like without that episode, like she probably wouldn't have even gotten back to what was it called again? Satellite One, whatever. Yeah. So like a lot of stuff was like set up and like introduced in other like episodes. Like the Dalek was introduced in Dalek and stuff like that. So most like for the rest of the show, like they don't really do that very often where like each episode has to tie in the finale somehow. Sometimes they do, like series 12 I think they did it a little bit more where like for the most part each episode kind of ties in a little bit with each other, like Orphan 55, and then like Nikola Tesla is like really subtle, like where they kind of, in a way, I don't think it was probably intentional, but I saw it, the themes where they do the whole like Nikola Tesla was like being used and like his ideas and what he could bring, like his greatness was like being like poached by first Edison, and then almost like stolen and like wanted by the Skifra, and that kind of mirrors, and like it throughout the episode it kind of mirrored him and the Doctor. And then in the finale, they, show that the Time Lords stole the ability to regenerate from the Doctor, so you kind of have a mirror there. So it's kind of a little bit of, foreshadowing for the finale. On top of the whole, have you ever seen the Dead Planet, which obviously ties in with Gallifrey being destroyed. And then Orphan 55 is a destroyed planet. You have little subtle things here and there, like tying each episode together. There was another one, like, oh yeah, the whole Ada Lovelace and then Lord Byron thing, because like she's his daughter and she's in Spyfall Part 2, and then he shows up later on, and that kind of ties things up a little bit too. Series 12 did it a little bit more than most series, but yeah, Series 1 is just the king for that. And then obviously Series 3, not that much, but it's still there. And obviously Lazarus Experiment is the big one, for like setting things up and like tying things in. And also I just, I do say the monster design is bad, but I do like the whole concept of it being like a stage in evolution that, didn't survive, didn't, go through testing or whatever. And so like having this guy that tries to make himself young, and then he messes with his DNA, and that causes him to turn into this monster that humans would have been, but like evolution didn't allow it. Like I really like the concept of the episode, like the actual like premise of the episode is really good, and a lot of the action and a lot of the scenes are really good too. Like it's a really entertaining, and like it can be really scary, it can be really clever, like how the Doctor blows up that room by like messing with the light, and then having the gas from the lab, like be able to like ignite everything. I really enjoy that. It's a really clever, subtle episode, and also I really like Lazarus himself. He's a really interesting villain that, obviously he's only in this episode, and he never gets a mention ever again besides the finale. But yeah, he's a really interesting villain. He like, you can feel that he feels really old. Like I like how they tied in Empty Child with him being from World War, like he was a kid or whatever in World War II, and like obviously the Doctor was there. an empty child and stuff. So it's a nice little tie-in with that, and also just he's really like you understand his reasoning, but you also don't like why he's doing stuff. Like he's kind of corrupt, but at the same time, he wants better for humanity. He's a really interesting villain, and obviously, once he turns into the monster again, he's just really scary. Like a lot of the scenes with him are just like, oh my god, run, But yeah, I'm already 30 minutes in, and we've only talked about 2 episodes that no one even liked that much. Oh no. I might split this up into parts. Might get to like. I might split this up into 2. But anyways, next episode at number 7, is the 2-parter, the Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks. Yeah, this is probably the one that like a lot of people don't like. Again, like I think one big reason why people don't like series 3 is probably because of this episode. Like people like put this episode in with like Love and Monsters and Fear Her and Idiot's Lantern, which is just absolutely horrific. It's not the best episode. Obviously, it's not the best story. But I really do enjoy it. I don't think it merits the reputation that it has. Again, going for the cons first. I think the biggest problem is I just don't like the side cast. I think the side casts are probably one of the weaker elements of the episode. Like the guy that Dalek Sec possesses or whatever. He's really frustrating. I don't know if he was an actual person from New York or if it was a British guy doing the accent. But he was just really frustrating to listen to. Just the way he was talking and stuff like that. And just his character was just not good at all. I just didn't like him. And then once he starts, playing Dalek Sec, like, he's also really annoying because, like, the writing for Dalek Sec is really good, but then the actual performance of, like, the way he talks, like, he's trying to do the New York accent on top of being, like, trying to talk like a Dalek. It just didn't work at all. And then you have Tallulah. Oh my, Tallulah. She's something. I'll tell you that much. She is something. She's an acquired taste. I'll say that much. She can be rough. She is rough. Yeah, I'm not huge on Tallulah, and by association, Laszlo's not the best either. Yeah, I'm not huge on the sidecast. Andrew Garfield, I don't even remember his character's name or what he does in the episode. That should say like the only thing about his character is that he's played by Andrew Garfield. Like that's all you remember about. Like I don't remember anything about him besides like I think he was flirting with Martha. And then you think he died, but he didn't die at one point, and that's about it. I don't remember anything about his character at all. So he was a bit pointless. The only good, like, part of the side cast, besides, like, the only part of, like, the cast, but that's not, the Doctor, Martha, and the Daleks, nearly went full American there, is the black guy. I can't remember his name. I think... For some reason, I want to say Deacon, but that's probably a reference to like Walking Dead or something. Hang on, Solomon. His name was Solomon. He was pretty good. I really enjoyed Solomon. For the most part, he was good. I think his weakest part of the episode, and I don't think it's really down to his character or the actor, is the whole like speech. I can't remember which part it was. I think it was. Was it Evolution? I think it was the Evolution because you had Dalek Sec being like, "Don't kill him," and then they still kill him. Was like the speech before he dies. And like it's really just down to the fact that he's giving this rousing, motivating speech about peace and humanity and friendship and love and all that. But it's like it's to a Dalek, like it's just. Like, especially, like, in a story about, having a quote-unquote good Dalek, right? It's just you have the other Daleks who are still full on Dalek. It's just you were kind of just it's every second ticking by. It's just like, come on, just shoot him. Like, just, I know you're gonna shoot him. Stop wasting my time and just shoot the guy. Yeah. So it was just, that wasn't a very great scene because it was just like the actual performance itself was just like it just you knew it wasn't gonna happen. So it's just a bit like wasting time and just a bit annoying. But yeah, I mean, besides that, Solomon was still pretty good throughout most of the episode. Like the bit where he's like those two guys were fighting, and then he comes and like breaks the piece of bread for the two of them, and that's a really nice scene, really memorable scene. But yeah, besides him, like as I said, Tallulah, Laszlo, Andrew Garfield, even Dalek Sec himself, they're all a bit of frustrating to watch. But yeah, I mean, besides that, I mean, I can't really think of like a proper con for this episode. Yeah, it's just a decent episode. I don't have too many problems with it. I really love the setting. I think I mean, to an extent, they use the setting of New York well. I don't think they've really nailed the New York vibe in like any of the episodes they've had. They've had New York in like what other episodes, like the chase, that was atrocious. I'll talk about that at another point. The chase was really bad when they went to New York. Even Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, like it's like I do like the setting and stuff, but it being New York is just a bit weird. Obviously, it's like before New York really becomes New York or whatever, so you can't really get the New York vibe from it. Like the classic New York vibe from it, because it's obviously before. It's like going back to, I don't know, feudal Japan. Yeah, like going back to like feudal Japan and then expecting to see some I don't know, like Blade Runner visuals or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, but what other episodes? I know there's another one that they're in New York. I can't remember now. I was just thinking about it. Dang it. But yeah, I think they used the setting of New York relatively well. I mean, they could have done a little bit more with it. Like, I don't think you really ever go in the streets of New York. It's really only Central Park, and then wherever it was, the place where Tallulah was performing, and then the Empire State Building. I think those are the only sets they have, and obviously the area underneath the Empire State Building. With the Daleks and stuff, but yeah, I do still like this setting. I like the actual showgirl stuff is really cool. I really enjoy that like style, the cabaret style, that like is really just a 1930s New York thing. It's really unique to that particular setting, and I think they did that really well. And also I really enjoyed the actual idea and concept they went for with the Daleks in this episode. Like Moffat, I think like this is the closest you could have to like a Moffat era Dalek story in the RTD era, because obviously I think a big thing is most of the Dalek stories are in the finales, right, in the RTD era. And for the most part, it's just the Daleks are. I'm not gonna say they're one note, they're not one dimensional, but like the most, like they're really about just. Like their game plan is just we're gonna kill everybody. Obviously, it goes differently each time. Like, parting with the ways is just like, oh, we're just gonna kill everybody on this space station until we kill the Doctor, and then the Doctor's like, oh, I'm gonna kill everybody, and the Daleks are like, do it. And then like Doomsday was like having the Doctor, whoever opened the prison, to send out more Daleks, which obviously just means they're just gonna kill everybody. And then Journey's End is literally them trying to destroy all of reality with the planet bomb. So like the RTD, and even Dalek itself was just the Dalek going around the museum place. I can't remember what it's called. Just killing everybody. So a lot of the Dalek stories in the RTD era are mostly just the Daleks wanting to kill everybody, whereas here it's just is a different take, is a different idea for the Daleks of their game plan isn't to kill anybody really. Like I don't think they kill like specifically murder anybody until like the ending when they're being attacked by the human Daleks. I really do enjoy like the whole they're trying to evolve, trying to change because they're the last Daleks in existence. You know, what are they gonna do? You know, they're gonna try to kill people and then they're just gonna die. You know, like it's a really interesting, you know, place to go with the Daleks. It's kind of similar to Victory of the Daleks in a way, but it's better. Like almost every idea that's in Victory of the Daleks was done better in another episode. Like this episode does the whole teaming up with the Doctor to try and like help the Daleks thing kind of a little bit better than Victory of the Daleks. And then the Power of the Daleks did a better way of trying to make the Daleks seem like they're acting like good, even though they're still evil and have evil intentions. Yeah, but that's a story for another time. But yeah, I do enjoy, you know, the idea of the Daleks trying to evolve and like use human DNA to change themselves and stuff like that to survive, because they're obviously like if they keep on going with the whole kill everybody gimmick, they're just gonna die and then they're gonna be extinct. And so yeah, and then obviously Sek, he's trying to change, you know, especially when he, you know, integrates himself with the guy that again I can't remember. He like changes, becomes really human and compassionate and stuff like that. And then all the other Daleks are just pure Daleks. They're just like, why are we even doing this? You know, we're gonna lose ourselves. You know, the point of the Daleks is that we're pure and stuff. They'd rather die being pure and going out in a blaze of glory and stuff rather than, you know, losing themselves and becoming human and blah blah blah. Right? It's really fascinating, especially probably one of my favorite scenes. Like honestly, the most memorable bit of this episode and just the show in general is that bit when like the Daleks were just roaming around in the corridors and one of the Daleks was like, hey, wait up, why you think a Dalek can't? I mean Dalek's sick. And the Dalek was just like looking over his shoulder. He just like looks over the shoulder. He looks over his shoulder and is like, yeah, I got issues with Daleks. It's just so good. Like, honestly, that's probably the funniest Dalek moment ever. It's better than Doomsday. I'm sorry. It's really good. I really enjoyed that bit. Man. Anyways, yeah. And also, to close things off on this story, it was the birth of one of my favorite songs in the Doctor Who OST of the whole My Angel Put a Devil in Me. It's a really good song. It's a really good song. I listen to that daily. It's just so good. It's really catchy, and then obviously when they use it again, and then the time of Captain Jack is just like, it's really just memorable because of that especially. So yeah, that song would have existed without this episode. So, you know, thank you, Daleks in Manhattan Evolution of the Daleks. You were great. But anyways, we're 43 minutes in. And we're only halfway through. We're not even halfway through. We'll quickly go through this next episode, because I mean, I enjoy it. It's obviously at number 6, but I don't have too much to say about it. It is 42 at number 6. Couldn't be higher than this, honestly, but I still do really enjoy this episode. Again, underrated episode. Like, even people that like Series 3 don't like this episode. I really dig it. I think a big part of it is a lot of people prefer, because this episode almost feels like a ripoff of Impossible Planet, Satan Pit. I'm not big on that story, so obviously this episode, which is taking that story and doing some different changes to it, I prefer. This episode is an amalgamation of Rings of Akka 10 and the Satan Pit, and I hate those two episodes, but when you mix them together and get 42, I enjoy it. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why. I think it's just because of the Series 3 bias or something. I don't know what's going on with this episode, but yeah, I really do enjoy 42. I'll start off again with the cons, because I think the biggest cons with this episode and I think most people can understand why, is it's written by Chris Chibnall. So obviously it's gonna have those Chibnallisms, of the side cast being dull as a box of what's dull? What's dull? I can't even think of something as dull as Chris Chibnall's writing. But yeah, the side cast is dull and completely just I don't remember any of their names. Obviously, I can only vaguely remember their faces and like maybe a scene with them. But besides that, like the side, everybody was just completely just dull, uninteresting. They're just filler characters. If that's a possibility, this episode did it. Like they all have like one interesting characteristic or like scene in the episode. Like the captain lady, she only has the things she has going for is the whole her husband, like the scene where she and like her husband killed themselves. Well, she kills herself and takes the husband who's being possessed by the sun with her. That's a really good scene, powerful scene. I really enjoy that scene. And the whole idea that like she stole the power from the sun and stuff like that, and now she's having to pay for her sins and stuff. I really do enjoy that. Besides that, I don't remember anything about her or any scene with her. I vaguely remember the kiss scene between Martha and the guy. I can't remember why she kisses him, besides her just being with him for the majority of the episode. And it's also a bit weird for like Martha to have such like a... It's just weird with like the series where you would have... where like it's about like the doctor not being... like it's so weird for Martha to just have this random fling with this one random guy. I don't know, it's a bit weird. It's not really even a fling, it's just like a mild attraction. I don't know. It was weird. But yeah, that's all I remember of that guy, besides like him being in the shuttle with Martha when they're being shot into the sun. I don't remember what he did in those scenes, but I know he was there. And like there were two other guys and then another chick, I think. Oh, the Rosa Parks is in this episode. I don't remember. I think she dies almost immediately. Like she has an interesting. She has a funny gag where she was like, she was complaining about something and was just like, "Kill me now," and then the guy just comes out of nowhere and kills her. Right? That was a funny gag. And besides that, it's Rosa Parks from Rosa. That's about it. That's all I remember about her. I want to say there was another female character that dies almost immediately as well, but I genuinely can't remember if she was there. I think she was a figment of my imagination. I don't know. Besides them, the sidecast I just don't remember at all. Like they're literally filler characters. And of course, just a good portion of the episode is dedicated to a lot of dialogue and exposition, and obviously that just means that it's just not going to be an interesting episode to really listen to in terms of like entertainment value, at least, because a lot of it is just exposition, like explaining stuff, and just the dialogue itself is kind of clunky in some places. I think Ten and Martha have probably the most interesting fun lines. Like obviously the big thing with this episode, the biggest meme with this episode is the burn with me stuff. That's really good. I really enjoy that. I don't know where Chibnall pulled that out, but the burn with me stuff, where like Tennant absolutely going nuts. Burn with me, Martha. All that is amazing. But besides that, like a lot of it is a bit meh. I do enjoy. I just remembered it's the bit where he's like being possessed by the sun and like they're putting him in the freezer thing. That for some reason, I don't get the freezer thing. That was always a bit weird. But when like they're putting him in the freezer thing and he's trying to quickly explain the whole regeneration thing to Martha, and it's just complete. Like you almost forget about it, but when you do actually see it, it's like wow, that really like amplifies everything to another level. When you think about like, oh well, I mean, you could say, oh, the Doctor's not gonna die, but he could just regenerate. Like that's just always kind of not really, but it's still kind of a possibility that the Doctor could technically regenerate and die. And like he doesn't necessarily die, he could still be within the episode. Like he could have regenerated at the end of Stolen Earth and Matt Smith take over, and like technically the Doctor doesn't die, but he's regenerated, so it's a different there's always that possibility. That's like a good thing with Doctor Who, is just the whole the possibility of the Doctor regenerating. It's kind of always present in a way, even though it's obviously just through the idea that it's a TV show, and you would have heard that there was another Doctor and stuff like that, besides like the Roof Doctor, but that's another thing. But yeah, I do enjoy that scene. It's a really good character moment, and it really adds to the stakes a little bit when they kind of do like the whole Martha, when I'm about to die and stuff like that. But yeah, a lot of it is just weird, and the pacing also is a bit off with the episode. Like in some places, like it kind of like obviously it's trying the whole 42 is like it's supposed to be like it's in real time or whatever, but obviously it's not, right? Like it's really weird how like it's supposed to be in real time, but then they can still, I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, the pacing is just a bit off in some places. But yeah, I mean, besides that, I really enjoyed the sun villain. I really enjoyed like the actual concept of them stealing like energy fuel from like an evil sentient sun, and now it's trying to kill them, and like though it's heating up the place, it's possessing people, all that because like they stole fuel from it. I really enjoyed it. All that stuff with this episode I really do enjoy. I like the concept of it. The sun, the villain, it's really good. For some reason, a lot of people think it's the actual sun and not a random sun from another solar system. For some reason, that's a weird complaint people have. It's just like, oh, the sun can do that. No, it's not the sun. That's why. But yeah, it's just a random star somewhere. But yeah, and I really do enjoy the setting as well. It's really good set. Like how it, and like the aesthetics of it, like it feels really hot. That's it really gives off that vibe. Like yes, we're close to a sun. Everybody's sweating. Everybody's all sticky and gross looking. Like there's a lot of steam. You can see a lot of fire. It's really hot. The color palette is really red and brown again. It's really hot. I really enjoyed that. That they really give off that impression. Like even in episodes where it's set in like a cold climate and like place, like they still don't feel cold. Like the episode that springs to mind is like Thin Ice. Like Thin Ice doesn't feel cold. Like in a lot of places. Like I think the only time it really felt cold was when they were at the bottom of the river and looking for the monster and stuff like that. That felt cold a little bit, but not really. But yeah, so like this episode really matched up, like thematically, actual plot and like the visuals of it really matched up well. And as I said, Burn With Me and just Ten's character I really enjoy, and like a lot of the actual Doctor and Martha moments in this episode are really good. Like the whole like I'm gonna regenerate thing, and the big one is when she like gets sucked out into space, and you have that neat scene where like it's completely quiet and you can hear Ten like shouting at her, it's like I'm gonna save you, and like Martha like crying and stuff like that. It's almost like the dramatic version of the scene from Partners in Crime. All that, and then when he goes to save her, and you have all the strange creatures playing in the background as he's like doing this heroic deed of like saving Martha from the sun and stuff like that. And then when he does get possessed from the sun, he's like, "It's alive." All that's really good. Yeah, I just really enjoy the actual Doctor Martha moments. They're all good. And when she calls Francine, like you have a little emotional moment there, but then at the same time, Francine's like, "Is the doctor there with you?" and blah blah blah. And like Martha has that whole moment of, I don't want my last moments with my mom to be us arguing and stuff like that, you know. And like, you know, mom being, you know, a Batman. Yeah, a lot. I really enjoy, as I said, the Doctor Martha moments are really good, and I just like the story in general. It's just like an episode that I enjoy, even though it's got a lot of problems with it, mostly because it's Chris Chibnall's writing, but it's still a really strong episode. I really enjoy it. But yeah, it's at number 6. Now at number 5, we're in the top 5. At number 5, we have Smith and Jones, which is another really, really, really underrated episode. I really enjoyed this episode. I watched it before Fugitive of the Jadoon, just to get, you know, a little bit of Jadoon vibes going. And was really good. I really enjoy Smith and Jones. It's fun. It's a great intro to Martha. Like, I think it's a really good, like, introductory episode to a companion that you very rarely have. Introduces her really well. You know, she's a medical student. She's at the hospital, so obviously the setting matches her, like, you know, job, which that's just a thing that never happens. It feels like you know, Rose. You know, she was working at a department store, and she was at the opening of that episode, was at a department store, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it was like a medical student, and she's at a hospital. They're doing. The pacing in this episode compared to, like, 42 is really good. Like, it really flows and goes really well, where, like, a lot of it, there's a lot packed in, but it still feels really light. You know, you can just watch it and enjoy it, and it not feel slow. It doesn't feel fast. It's really good. I really enjoy the pacing of the episode. It's really well done. And the characters are pretty good. Like, I like that guy. I can't remember his name. I don't think he even has a name. The guy that's like, he's basically with the Jadoon for the majority of the story. Like, he's the first guy. Like, they steal the language. Like, they assimilate the language from him, and do the whole, like, human scan from him, and he's like, well, he's like supposed to be like the first contact or whatever. He was good. The actual, like, head doctor guy, he was cool. A lot of the characters in this episode, there weren't a lot like you actually focus on, but they were pretty fun. They were pretty good. And then he turns back up again and turn left when they do the whole, you know, doctor wasn't there, and then was it Martha, Sarah Jane? All of them died? I think, like, both Martha and Sarah Jane died in like, that part. Huh. And he was there. He was giving the emotional speech. So, yeah, that guy's good. The actual setting of the hospital I really enjoy, too. I really like clinical-looking, like, places. Like, Seranga Conundrum. Terrible episode, but it's probably one of my favorite sets in Doctor Who. I really like that clinical, you know, hospital vibe going. That it always has, like, it could be really creepy, it could also just be really nice to look at. You know, yeah, I really like the hospital. And just the moon in itself, like, just visually and, like, location and setting wise, I think it's just a really neat episode. It's a hospital on the moon. It's really unique. At the same time, it has a really interesting visual flair to it. You know, like, the actual moon itself is pretty cool. It's a neat episode to look at. As I said, it's one of the few episodes in the series that it doesn't have, like, the brown, you know, brown and red kind of color palette. It's mostly whites and grays and stuff like that, and blacks. Because, like, you know, Martha, she has, like, her white lab coat. The hospital is mostly white walls and floors and stuff like that. The moon is white dust, sand. You know, it's very, it's very whites and grays and blacks. And the Jadoon, you know, they're wearing the black and stuff. Like, even 10, Like he has the blue suit on. You know, it's the first time you see the blue suit. So even he's got a different, like it looks different just because of him. Uh, yeah, really, and of course, I gotta say, big plus on this episode is just the Jadoon are really good. They're a really cool, awesome villain. You know, like they're kind of underrated when it comes to like even just new Who villains. You know, obviously, like when you compare them to like the Silence and the Weeping Angels and stuff like that, you know, like they kind of fall to the wayside a little bit. But yeah, they're a really cool villain. Like they like, I remember having a vibe like they were kind of a bit goofy and not silly, and you couldn't take them as seriously. But when I watched it before Fugitive of the Dune, like they really do, like they don't feel like jokes that much at all. Like I don't think there's really, like, besides the whole using a marker thing, like the whole using a marker and like the people to like save their human or not, they're actually really, like, they're really a serious threat and stuff. Like they're really treated seriously. Like they kill people. They have the whole Judge Dredd gimmick going on. You know, like they're pretty cool. You know, I don't know why there's like this weird thing with them being goofy villains. I don't know, but yeah, they're really cool. Two cons I have with the episode. The Plasmavore and the Slabs aren't the best. Like she's fun, but like I don't know. You probably and like the actual concept of like she drinks people's blood and then like that, like her biology, her physiology kind of changes to sort of match who her blood she drinks or whatever. And then they do some interesting stuff with that where like the Jadoon can't find her because she registers as human because she drank that doctor's blood, and then the reason why they catch her is because she drinks the doctor's blood, who's a Time Lord, and then he isn't human, and so they see her as non-human, and that's how they catch her. They play around with that really well, but like the whole drink using a straw thing is a bit weird. This series has a lot of sucking life energy out of people. I realize, like they do that in Lazarus Experiment too, so that's interesting. Yeah, but like the whole using a straw thing, like she's not really all that interesting or intimidating or anything. She's kind of just lurking around, but she's not even fun in terms of just her lurking around. I'm not huge into Plasmavore, and the actual like slabs, the biker guys are a bit weird. The biker robot android thingies are a bit weird. Even like how Ten beats him with the radiation is a bit weird. I also really like Ten's characterization in this episode. I really enjoy him in this episode. He's got obviously because it's the whole introduction of a new companion, they try to show it from the companion's perspective, which obviously lends better to the actual Doctor because the Doctor feels a little bit more mysterious, a little bit more, grand, you know. So obviously in this episode he feels a little bit more quirky, a little bit more mysterious and like a bit weirder, like he's presented a little bit more weird, a little bit more like blah, you know, like the whole he puts the radiation into his shoe, and then like the actual his first couple of scenes, like the one where he's taking off his tie and is like, and so that's weird, and then when he's in the hospital bed and like like Martha uses the stethoscope on him to like see he has two hearts and stuff, and like he winks at her, and like he really has this mysterious like special vibe to him, you know, which obviously doesn't happen a lot in the show. Obviously Blink, like they do it a lot in series 3 with the Doctor, which is why I really enjoy series 3. Like Ten's Doctor, they really give a nice mysterious like aura to him where he feels really like otherworldly, you know, like Blink and Human Nature do it really well, and it's really well done here as well, of like really giving him that special vibe that a lot of the time isn't there, especially in like most episodes where they, you know, like series 2 and series 4, you know, you feel like here's the Doctor, you know, you feel like you're watching, going through the show with him, whereas you're going through the series with Martha, and you're kind of experiencing the Doctor in a different light and stuff, which is why I enjoy Series 3 so much. But yeah. And another con, and as I said, I mean, it's kind of similar to the Lazarus Experiment, and it's a bit, I don't know, I think it's a bit clunky how they do it. Where for Lazarus Experiment, Francine was like immediately, like suspicious of the Doctor, and obviously, like, it's, she's not really gonna show up too often besides like the occasional phone call or like mention, like little scene where she's just like at the house and stuff, so you couldn't really develop that whole she's not fond of the Doctor thing in other episodes. So obviously you needed to really push in that episode, but I still felt they did it a little bit too quick, a little bit too clunkily. They probably should have just let it all be the Saxon guy convincing her that the Doctor is bad, instead of her immediately thinking he's bad and then having it be quote unquote confirmed. Like, I don't think that's well done. And another thing I don't think is well done is how Martha immediately is just like, I have a crush on him. I feel like they probably could have developed it a little bit better, where like throughout the series you kind of get a little bit more development on her liking the Doctor and stuff like that, and having a crush on him and falling in love with him, instead of immediately like he kisses her and then it's like, oh, love at first sight kind of deal. That one I'm not big on. I think you can't do it. You can't do a whole she loves the Doctor thing, but I feel like they could have developed it a little bit more and like actually done it better, instead of immediately like her having a crush on him and just being the whole series she has a crush on him. I feel like they could have grown to that level a little bit more instead of that's really it. I really enjoyed this episode. It's a really good episode, and I'm over an hour in. Well done. But anyways, time for number 4, and it's the big one. It is the finale, Utopia, The Sound of Drums, and Last of the Time Lords. Yeah, this is a bit weird. I really enjoy Utopia. Like, Utopia probably would have been number 1 if I just counted it on its own. At least number 2. It's a really, really good episode. Sound of Drums is even really good too. I really enjoy Sound of Drums. Like, that's really up there. Like, if I were doing individual episodes, I would probably put Utopia at like number 1 or 2, and then like Sound of Drums as like number 3 or 4. Yeah, but what really kind of drags it down a little bit is Last of the Time Lords. And it's not even that Last of the Time Lords is a bad episode at all. Like, it has a bad rap, a lot. I don't think a lot of it is earned, but I'm not into it personally. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I want to talk about Utopia and Sound of Drums because I really adore those episodes. They're really great. The Gallifrey stuff is awesome. Jack is really great. I feel like Martha's family is well integrated with how they do all the stuff in like the opening of Sound of Drums when like they're getting arrested. I really love that bit in Sound of Drums when Martha is like she's like, I got to call my family, and then like she calls I can't remember if it was like the mom or the dad. I think it was on the home phone, and like they were both talking, and like you had Saxon's like people surrounding him being like, you can't say anything, and then Martha's mom like trying to cooperate and being like, Martha, just come along, blah blah blah, and then like she's talking to the dad, it's like, Dad, what do you think? And then the dad's just like, Martha, run, they're going, and like there's this really intense scene of like him running away, trying to like getting chased by the Saxon people, warning her that like she's in danger. I really love that scene. That's a really good, really great scene. It's just yeah, and like when they're being tortured and tormented throughout like Sound of Drums and Last of the Time Lords, it really just hurts on you. And a thing that people really complain about in this episode, and it's probably the biggest complaint in Last of the Time Lords, which I just do not get at all, is the whole time reversal thing. Because obviously, like, Because like a big thing is like it affects the characters that actually matters. Like all the characters that do remember stuff, like they're the ones who are relevant. Like Martha's family, Martha, the doctor, Jack. Like they're the ones who, and even the master's wife. They're the ones who are relevant to the story, and you've actually seen them throughout the story. Like they're the ones you're following. So them having like keeping all of that like development from the episode, this finale is what matters. It doesn't matter if the Earth is destroyed. Like why? Like I don't. Especially because they do set it up as a paradox machine. Like it's not supposed to happen. So you get rid of the paradox. Earth is back to normal. Like it would have been weird to just be like, oh yeah, the Earth is still destroyed. Half the population of the Earth is gone. Like it was just. Like I don't get the whole like complaint about the time reversal. Obviously it's a cliche. It's a common trope. It's done to death a lot. I don't think it's done a lot in Doctor Who specifically. Like I think the only times that's done again is like Big Bang, which I feel like people complain about Big Bang less than this episode, even though it does it even more egregiously. Like you reverse all, like even I guess Amy and Rory and River remember everything, and again that's what counts. But I don't know. That one is worse than this episode, but people don't complain about that one more. So so it's weird, and yeah, I mean it has lasting effects on the people who matter, and it obviously is reversed for everybody else who you don't see, and it doesn't matter. So yeah, the time reversal is not a problem at all, and I don't get why people say it is a problem. But anyways, and I again I really enjoy Sim's Master. He's great. The John Sim Master. Him as a character, I prefer him here than in End of Time. End of Time, he's a bit weird. But he's great in this episode. Like he has that good wackiness to him, but he can still be really cruel. And like this is probably the only episode, at least in New Who, where the Master's really at another level of just evil and just malicious and just he's sinister. He's really sinister. Like he kills people and laughs at it. Like that. Like a lot of it's really dark. Like that part where he had to Taclophane, kill that reporter lady that was like suspicious of him, and like they do it like they make it a funny scene by having the whole he opens the door and like she shouts and stuff like that, and then the actual story of the Taclophane being like the people that like the Master, like even under the Yana incarnation and the Yana like like the chameleon arch thing, even under that he still had the wherewithal to like enact his plan of like sending the humans to that place where for some reason it's not really that well explained or like described. I guess they didn't need to, but it's still a bit weird. It's like, oh yeah, the Master as Yana sent all this colony of humans to this place, and somehow they managed to get all their heads cut off and put into this machine thing that can kill. It's a weird thing. The Taclophane are weird, but it's a really dark concept too. It's like really dark. One thing I enjoy about this story, it's very dark. It's very dark. Like the I don't think they even really mention it, but like the whole underlying subtle thing about how the Master was like abusing the wife throughout the year, which is why like once you go to Last of the Time Lords after like the time skip of the year, like she's a lot more like decrepit and like she's like scared of him. Like she looks like somebody who's been beat up and tortured and stuff. It's really well done, which is why she goes and kills him at the end. But like they don't really mention that he was abusing her or like torturing her or beating her up or whatever. It's just a nice bit of subtle character development that you didn't even really need to do on some level, which is why like she betrays him. It's really good. I really enjoy it. But yeah, just very dark story. The Masters is great. Both Masters phenomenal. Just in like 10 minutes, Jacoby is like one of the best masters. Obviously John Sim kills it throughout all 3 episodes. So many quotable lines, so many good moments with him. He's just really, really good. Even in Last of the Time Lords, and all the development of Gallifrey, just this episode. Besides War Games, which War Games is a different reason, but I feel like this episode in particular is probably, at least in New Who, I think is the best portrayal of like the Time Lords and like the history of Gallifrey and stuff they've done since. Obviously Series 2 they didn't do too much with the actual Gallifrey stuff. This is the first time I think they even mentioned Gallifrey, or like you see the planet or whatever. So. That's a whole thing. But yeah, just this series just is the best series for Gallifrey. Like they treated Gallifrey the best in this series. It really captured the fantastical grandeur of the Time Lords in just a way that none of the other series have done. Like Day of the Doctor is great and all, but like Gallifrey doesn't feel as special or as like wondrous as this series. Obviously a good portion of that just comes from the Gallifrey theme, which is just beautiful. Series 3 has like one of the best soundtracks. Just like all the strange creatures, Martha's theme, the Doctor Forever, the Gallifrey theme, the Masters theme. It's the My Angel Put the Devil in Me. All of that music is so good in this series. And, obviously this finale really benefits from just how good the music is. Yeah, and Jack coming back, just whenever Jack comes back, it, like, amplifies an episode tenfold. Like, Fugitive of the Jadoon, like, it's just, Jack's back. Like, the Series 4 finale, like, whenever Jack shows up in Doctor Who, it's a good episode. Like, it's a special episode. Like Good Man Goes to War probably would get a lot more people on it. That like a lot of people say it's overrated. If they managed to get Jack in that, no haters whatsoever. So yeah, just Jack is just great in it. Like his flirting, just him as a character, he's just really good character too. Like he's really compelling. Like. They really do a good job of like you have this immortal guy, and they use the fact that he's immortal really well, but like it still doesn't influence the way the story goes in like a massive way. It's like you have a guy who's immortal, but it doesn't really like you can still have stakes and like a threat level. So yeah, Jack's just great, and of course the Face of Bo reveal or twist, whatever it is, at the end, and it's like, oh, is he the Face of Bo? That's also really good. It really adds a level of like mystique to Jack and just the series in general, Yeah, so it's really just this 3-parter is just excellent. It's a really good ending to this series. Obviously, the biggest downfall is of course the Last of the Time Lords itself, which. A big thing is that it's just not super eventful because it's mostly a character piece of just you following Martha, and she's like talking about the Doctor and doing all this stuff, and you have these. It's a lot of reveals and like like reveals and just like moments and stuff. But as to like an actual episode, it's not very like it's weird. How can I describe it? My best explanation of it. It's not eventful. It doesn't feel like it's a flowing, progressing story in like a conventional way, I say my best description of it is a chess game. Like I have a lot of metaphors for this episode, so bear with me. It's like a chess game where instead of you make a move, you stake a piece here and there, like you take a pawn, you lose a knight, you take the queen, you lose like both your bishops, and it's like a very sort of like eventful, like things happening each time. It's more or less like you just moving your pieces. Nobody's taking any pieces. You're kind of just moving your pieces here and there to eventually get the checkmate, but like nothing happens until you get the checkmate. It's just a bunch of moving the pieces around type of stuff, which obviously isn't a bad thing, but like especially it being a finale, it being built up super heavily by like Utopia and Sound of Drums, is just a bit. It just kind of comes off a little bit disappointing. I think my best description is like the season 4 finale of Breaking Bad, where it's a bunch of setting things up so that you finally get that big pow at the end where the villain is defeated. Like, it's just kind of a bit, coasting a little bit. It's a bit similar to like Spyfall Part 2, but obviously there's, like in terms of like how the actual Casavan Daniel Barton plot happens, where it's kind of just, you're kind of just waiting for it to be resolved, and then it does get resolved. Obviously the Dr. Master stuff is different, which is another big thing with this episode, is I'm not too keen on how the Doctor and Master are like it's a really specific thing, where like I'm not saying like it's lacking of violence or like I don't know what to describe it with, like this Master and this Doctor, because even in End of Time it's a little bit different. Like there's a lack of, it's not really a lack, it's like the way the story is structured, like how those characters interact and stuff is not as good. It's not my favorite. Like I think my best explanation is like compare it to Spyfall, where Spyfall there was an element of back and forth and like like it felt I don't know how to explain. Like, Spyfall. Let's just go through the actual Master Doctor scenes in Spyfall. You have that bit where like they're being driven to MI6 and like the Master like hacks in to the car and like tries to kill the Doctor on the car, and you have that intense like little car scene, right? Then you have the bit where they're actually in MI6 and like he sends the Casavan and like tries shooting at her and like she has to run away, and like and like he's really desperate on killing her and stuff like that. And then you have the cliffhanger where like just immediately like things flip on his head and he immediately blows up the plane, puts her in danger, then has the Casavan take her to the Casavan realm, and it really feels like the Master is really like really going after the Doctor. Like it's really like a battle between the two. And then part 2 is kind of like the inverse, where like is the Master had the upper hand in Spyfall Part 1, and like the Doctor is kind of evading her and like evading him, and like she was kind of on the back foot, whereas Part 2 he was kind of a bit on the back foot, where like the first interaction they have is at the science fair, where like the doc she like he has her kneel, like I don't know, and then like the Nazi scene where like she has the Nazis come out. Yeah, like I'd have to do a whole video and like actually write it down and like properly explain why the Master Doctor stuff in Last of the Time Lords just doesn't click as well as in other episodes, even though the actual episodes themselves and like almost everything surrounding it, like Spyfall, almost everything surrounding it is inferior to like this episode, where like 10, I don't even like 10, but like 10 and Sim are just better than Whitaker and Dewan. Like the companions and the actual plot itself is better. Like almost everything is better. It's just like that one thing that Spyfall has the edge over is just how the Doctor and the Master like interact. Like I think again, metaphor is Last of the Time Lords, and like this story is a bit like a boxing match where like you have a guy, they're both just looking at each other, and like one guy, he's the one that keeps on throwing all the punches, and like the other guy is just like evading him and like taking all the punches. Like he's on the defense, and then just right at the end, bow, the guy that was on the defense gets one punch in, and then that's it. end of the fight. Whereas Spyfall feels like a really back and forth fight where each guy's punching each other. And it's like one punch, and you think, oh, is he down? And then he's not down. He gets back up and he punches the other guy. And you think that guy's down, but he gets back up. And it's really back and forth until there's a big climactic and final punch that really seals the deal. Imagine those two kinds of boxing matches. Which one would you be more compelled in watching? The guy, he's getting beat up the whole time, and then he gets one punch, and that's it. And it's like one big punch, and then that's the fight. Or would you like a bit more back and forth, like they're both at equal, like they're both equal footing, they're both like really giving each other like the business. I don't know. Yeah, that's it really. That, and of course just the whole pixie doctor thing is weird, like the whole old man then pixie form. It's all a bit weird, which I guess it's kind of just on a similar note, it's just the whole power differentials here. Like Spyfall again. Spyfall is closest in my memory. It's honestly just one of my favorite interactions between the Doctor and the Master. I'm sorry, but they both feel like they're on equal footing a lot of the time. Like, it doesn't feel like the Master or the Doctor is in a state of weakness or strength over each other most of the time. Like, it feels really back and forth. Like, the Master has her do the whole he has the whole TCE, I'm gonna kill everybody here gimmick, and he makes her kneel down and stuff like that. And then just immediately Ada shoots him and blows him up and stuff. And then you have the Nazi thing where he's working in the Nazis and he's trying to track her down, and you have a little bit of the Doctor's kind of being hunted down and stuff, but then she flips it on his head and then has the Nazis come after the Master. And then again, in the last scene of the Master where the Kasavan and Barton are they're doing their thing, and they're gonna reformat humanity, and the Master's haha, I'm gonna win. And then he has, and then the Doctor comes in and is oh, I set in a thing to reverse all that. And then the Master's well, you still have to answer the Kasavan, and you think the Kasavan are gonna kill him. And then the Doctor's actually, I recorded you talking smack about the Kasavan, now they're gonna come after you. It feels very back and forth, and they're both equals. They're both equals in this game of war. Whereas here is the Doctor is pretty much on the back foot the whole time. The Master has everybody looking for him, they're wanted criminals across the country. And then once they do get to the Valiant and blah blah blah, the Master shrinks the Doctor down, and then has Martha's family and Jack take prisoner. And then basically all of last of the time was just the Doctor being an old man, and then the weird dwarf pixie thing, and he can't do anything either physically or even on any level. He's completely just being dominated, and the Master's completely in control. And then just out of nowhere, completely flips 180 with the whole Archangel Network psychic thing where he turns into Super Saiyan Jesus man, and then it's just completely the Master's lost all control in immediately 1 second. The Master's the one who's on the back foot completely and can't do anything. He can't kill the Doctor or the companions. He won't risk blowing himself up with the planet with that black hole converter missile thing, which I completely forgot about until yesterday. It's very it's yeah, it's grim and stuff like that, which I like, but I don't know, it lacked that back and forth, which I really enjoy. A Pertwee and Delgado, they'd have their fights, and it feel like Delgado's in control, but the Doctor still would have the upper hand and stuff. It's weird. Yeah. It's almost inverse to other things where the Master would occasionally have the upper hand, but the Doctor was beating him at every turn and stuff. and like he would have to depend on his allies to do the stuff for him, like the Ogrons and the Sea Devils and stuff like that. Kind of similar to Missy in Death in Heaven, where like, Missy wasn't really doing much. She had the upper hand occasionally, but like it was never really a fight between the Doctor and the Master in that. It was mostly just the Cybermen doing their own thing, and like the Missy basically using the Cybermen to do her goals instead of her really doing anything herself, Whereas this one, it was a lot more like the Master was just in control. He had everything going, and he just sent the Toclafane around killing everybody. Like the Toclafane more like like an independent force, really. So, yeah. All that to say, it lacks a certain something, which is why I'm not into Last of the Time Lords personally. The whole Archangel Network, like Super Saiyan mode thing, I don't mind as much as people do. Like, it's a bit weird, like the show in general just has a weird thing with religion, So this series especially, for some reason, had a really weird thing with religion, where you had, like, Gridlock. For some reason, they had that whole thing, like, there's a whole thing in Gridlock, and the Weeping Angels. Then, for some reason, the finale, they have a whole, like, pray to the Doctor, and then he'll save us all. And then, this series in particular has a weird thing with religion. And then, like, Matt Smith era, where for some reason, they have a running gag about the church turning into this weird thing in the future, and it's all a bit weird, and it's like, why even do that? And then Witchfinders, like series 11 in particular, is just a bit off with the religious stuff, but it's a good show, it doesn't matter. Anyways, yeah, that's it for the finale. It's a good finale, it's a great finale, but it just doesn't, it lacks a certain something, which I really can't explain well. But anyways, number 3, and we're like at an hour and a half in, so number 3, longest video I've done in like years. At number 3, we have Gridlock, which I was just talking about. Gridlock, one of my favorite episodes, probably the most underrated episode. It's really weird. Like, I always think it's not underrated because like everybody says it's underrated, to the point where I was like, this isn't overrated. But then like almost every reactor I've seen react to this episode, or barely have like a strong reaction to it at all. Like nobody, like it's almost Midnight levels, where like a lot of reactors I've seen react to Midnight. Okay, like I think 1 or 2 of them. I think Fail Whale had a really good reaction to Midnight. I can't remember. Well, a lot of I think Shayla too. I think Just So Shayla had a good reaction to Midnight. I don't know. I don't think she even had a reaction to Midnight. What I'm talking about, like those 2 episodes is like really, really good episodes, but like a lot of people just for some reason like they just don't click with it, and it's just it bugs me. But I mean, what are you gonna do, right? So yeah, whenever people say this is an underrated episode, I always don't think that because everybody says that, but then I see some people just completely don't care about this episode, and it's just like, oh. But yeah, this is a really good episode. For many reasons. I think this is the only episode I don't have any cons with. I don't have any problems with this episode at all. It's just a really good episode. One thing, and it's the biggest thing with this episode, I think, is it's the episode that actually, deepens the connection between Ten and Martha. It really is like, it cements Martha as a companion. Properly, just like, there it is. She's a companion now. She's one of the Doctor's closest friends, which, is why Shakespeare Code is an issue. I have an issue with that because they spend that episode, like some bits of that episode, kind of just completely ignoring Martha a lot. Just like there's not much to her in that episode. Like, she's great in it. She's fun. She's entertaining. She has some good moments. But like, she doesn't really have like a really major role in it. Like, she doesn't really have that big deep character moment or whatever. And a lot of the time is in the second episode where they really have that moment with a companion, where they really get a deep look into their character and like what they can bring to the table, like a really philosophical, almost like look at like humanity and like all that, like a lot of the time it's in the second episode. Like Rose, she had that in End of the World where like it was like, oh my god, I just saw the Earth get destroyed and now I just go back here, it's not destroyed, and you have a really deep, you really cement that connection between her and Nine in that episode. And then 10 and Donna, I think 10 and Donna for the most part was just like the whole series was just them having it, like getting deeper and deeper with their like dynamic and relationship and stuff. It's not really like specific to an episode really. I can't I can't, maybe Partners in Crime, I guess you could say it's in Partners in Crime, where like you really cement that whole Donna's a companion now, she's a friend of the Doctor, she's close to the Doctor kind of thing, instead of just being like, oh, here's somebody who I just took on an adventure, which is almost always the first episode has that vibe. I think the only time that hasn't really happened was 11th Hour. I think 11th Hour is the one of the few exceptions where like the actual connection, like in deep personal like relationship, is really developed and like introduced in 11th Hour, and then it's even more developed and like deep in Deep Beast Below. Not too much, but you still do have that whole he's old and kind and the last of his kind and stuff like that in Beast Below, which is kind of supposed to be like a little bit more like it adds to the connection, like strengthens the connection between 11 and Amy. But even in 11th Hour, it still already felt really strong, which is just a great part about 11th Hour and just Series 5 in general. And like the 11 and Amy dynamic and stuff. Clara, I want to say, Clara, that connection doesn't really happen until the Doctor trilogy, where like that's for some reason Name of the Doctor, Day of the Doctor, and Time of the Doctor is when you actually get that moment of like, yeah, Clara's a companion now, she's close to the Doctor, she's important to the Doctor kind of thing. Obviously most of the time it's not really on a character or like personal like I don't know what to say, like an actual like we're interacting, we're being close. It's more like she's actually just important to the Doctor in general. Like she, went into his timeline to rescue him from the Great Intelligence, and then, the like she influences 11 and 10 to like not destroy Gallifrey, and then she has the Time Lords give the Doctor his regenerations and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily in terms of like them interacting being like the bonding moment, but more or less just Clara doing stuff that's important to the Doctor as a character. It's different. So yeah, and then Bill, I want to say that doesn't happen until like the finale, really. I mean, on some level it's there in like the pilot, on some level. But yeah, probably, I don't know. It's Bill and 12 and Bill are weird, in a weird case there. But like it's kind of similar to the Donna thing, where it's like almost the whole series was them like strengthening the bond and stuff like that. I don't know how to describe it. And of course, 13 and her companions just haven't had that moment at all. Like, just not a singular moment where like it actually felt like 13 actually developed a proper bond and connection to those guys at all. That's just one of my problems with Chibnall era. It's just like, yeah, we just haven't had a moment or like an episode where it really felt like 13 and these companions were actually like getting, like they were actually being really close and really getting to each other on a personal level and stuff like that, really, developing as companions. That just never happened, and like the show just wants us to believe it happened, which it just never did. So, like there was a couple moments in like Woman Who Fell to Earth where like they had that scene Like Graham was like talking about he had cancer, and then the doctor was like, I'm a traveler, I'm all alone, I lost my family, but you gotta keep your family. And then that part, like there was a little bits between 13 and Ryan, where like she was watching him, try to ride his bike and stuff like that, and then the whole scene where like she was talking to him, like at the funeral place where like he was like she was talking to him about dad not coming and stuff like that. And then like the whole getting new clothes. Like you had a couple moments in Woman Felt where it felt like there was a connection building, but it never really felt like there was a cemented. Like it never felt like that connection was cemented, even though the show wants us to believe that, because like next episode was like, oh, these are my best friends, and like it never really gets deeper than that until like series 12. And even series 12 is like more the doctor, like it's more animosity more than like friendship or like love. It's more negative, like reaction is more like a negative, connection, kind of like Clara and 12 in like series 8. But yeah, but like this is Gridlock. But going back to Gridlock, whole tangent there. But going back to Gridlock, this was the episode I really cemented Martha as a companion, developing that deep personal connection to Tennant, which just didn't happen in Shakespeare Code, which is a big problem. That because she was kind of set to the wayside and more like focused on Ten grieving on Rose for a good portion of that. Well, not a good portion, but like moments of that were dedicated to Ten grieving over Rose, and you're not really getting that connection with Martha at all. It's kind of just, it feels like he's just bringing her on a trip and it's just fun and she's just kind of there. But this is the episode where it really felt like, yeah, Martha's an important to the Doctor now, kind of like Caves of Androzani. I think this episode is really similar to Caves of Androzani, where like they go to some place and like the companion's now in mortal danger, and like the Doctor's really having to fight to really keep her alive and like save her and stuff like that, and really shows that the Doctor actually kind of cares for this person more than like he probably would normally or whatever. Really shows that there's a connection there now. With Caves of Androzani, like she was poisoned, and like the Doctor basically died saving her, and really kept like it really showed like, yes, Perry is important, even though it was her second episode, like that's just how good Caves of Androzani was. And this is similar to Gridlock, where like she gets kidnapped and like he has to go through a whole thing to try and rescue her. Like really shows that he cares for her, and like like would really show that they are gonna be a duo, a partnership kind of thing. Whenever I say partnership, I think of that bit in Batman and Forever where he gets the Robin suit for the first time, and then that scene, which I always thought was a bit off, and I already realized, yeah, it's really weird, of where like they're talking and like Batman's like, oh, now we're friends, and like Robin's like, no, we're not just friends or father and son, we're partners. And for some reason that's like made out to be more important than being his friend. That was always weird, but you know what, that movie is just a weird movie in general. Side note over. Anyways, another thing I really love about Gridlock is the actual like visuals and like style of it and like setting. Is I really like those really close up like a really good claustrophobic episode is what I really enjoy. Like Midnight, I think is another good example. I compare, like there's a lot of episodes in Series 3 that's comparable to Series 4. I found like Shakespeare Code is comparable to Unicorn and the Wasp, and then like Gridlock is comparable to Midnight. Because like both of those episodes have a really claustrophobic feel. Like Midnight, you're on that bus, like you're only in the bus. Whereas Gridlock, like you have to go between car and car, each car, and like each car is like a really small space. It's really closed up and like yeah. Even though like he's going between the cars, and it's like a large amount of cars. It still feels really like cramped, and like you feel uncomfortable almost just because of how like small scale it is. It feels really personal. I really enjoy those kinds of stories. That really adds to a story I found for me. It was like whenever something feels really closed in, and like you're really getting a snapshot or something. There's a big finish that does that. I can't think of it now. I know Scherzo on some level does it. But there's one in particular that I found has like a really claustrophobic vibe to it that I really enjoy, but I can't remember it now. But yeah. So I really enjoy when they do that in like those kinds of episodes, which is why I really like TARDIS episodes, where like even though the TARDIS is big, it still feels really small. Feels really like you're being attacked in your own home kind of deal, and yeah, it really adds to it. And of course, I mean, the actual basis of the episode of how they were developing on these drugs, and like they set up the drugs at the beginning, these drug patches or whatever, which they bring back in Dark Water, which is great. And then they had a drug, like a patch, that was bliss, and it's supposed to be like the best drug because it's supposed to make you feel complete and utter happiness. It's supposed to be like the one drug to rule all the drugs, and it's like it's really special. It puts you it like makes you feel like you're on heaven properly. But then it's like dark twist is actually the thing that kills all of humanity, and like they had to lock all of them in like that. In the underground, and it's like you think it's a dark and sad moment, but the episode feels really grim, feels really dark. Feels really sad and tragic. These people are just locked underground, and it's like why did this happen? And it's like actually it's a good thing. There's a Black Mirror episode that does that. I know in particular there's a Black Mirror episode that does exactly that, where like it presents a really bad situation, but then you actually like they're in this bad situation because there's a worse situation that they're not in. Oh, what is the God, I have to go for the entire I'm not gonna rest until I figure it out. Yeah, I couldn't find the episode. I couldn't find the episode I was thinking of. There is a Black Mirror connection, though. The woman in this episode, I can't remember, who was she? Was she... No, she wasn't the cat guy's wife. No, she was... Yeah, she was the one of the couple that kidnapped Martha. She was in series 2 of Black Mirror. That's probably why I thought of Black Mirror, but who knows. But yeah, I really enjoy like how grim it is. A really dark episode where it's like, it's like you're in a bad situation, but technically the real situation is even worse and stuff like that. But now it's all settled and nice, so now they can go, and like it has a nice happy ending, and it's really uplifting ending to such a really dark and gruesome story. That like it feels earned as happy. I don't like, a lot of times when you have an episode like and it has a happy ending, for some reason it never clicks really well. I can't think of an episode now where like even if the situation's awful or whatever, whenever they do have like the happy ending at the end, it like I don't want it. Like I want everything to be sad and horrible. And this episode, I was really happy. Like it really it really hits you on an emotional level once the underground opens and everybody can fly up, and the doctor's like fly up. It's a bit like it's a bit like why I enjoy that. It's cause like Finding Nemo. That it's nostalgic. It's a I've been conditioned. Pavlov predicted it. Finding Nemo would make me enjoy Gridlock. When he was doing the fly up thing, was like making me think of Swim Up. That moment where they were like getting out of the fishnet in Finding Nemo. That's probably why I enjoy it so much. Either way, it's still a good moment, anyways. So yeah, I mean, yeah, all the side casts are really fun and really good. The cat guy, his wife, they're great. The couple who kidnapped Martha, they're not the greatest, but they're still interesting characters. They're still compelling. You get why they kidnapped Martha and stuff like that. They're not bad people. They're not exactly fun to be around. They're not exactly entertainment. They're basically the characters from 42, but a little bit more interesting. And yeah, and just all the people that as 10's going down the different cars, all the little side characters he meets in them are like really fun. Like you have the naked couple that's just like, oh my, and then the guy all the way at the bottom who looked, and that one guy that had like the water cooler, and he like just like Ten was like, oh, could you give me some water? So like he drinks water and goes back down and stuff. All that is just really fun. It's really fun. It feels really connected. You know, like it feels really claustrophobic, but it feels really big too because of all how each people like it feels really nice and human. It's like the anti-Midnight, where like Midnight's showing the worst of humanity. This episode feels really nice. It feels really like everybody's good. It feels like a community, a neighborhood. Everybody's, even though they can bicker, like the old lesbian couple. Were they lesbians or sisters? I mean, I think they make a joke. Like the cat guy was like, you're sisters. You don't. I'm an old-fashioned cat myself. That whole bit, that was funny. But it like there was a little bit of like bickering, like that whole neighborly bickering. Like you don't like your neighbor, but you still love him and stuff like that. That was all fun. It had a really nice underlying like heart to it. It really adds to the episode. It's kind of, as I said, the opposite of Midnight, showing you the worst of humanity. This one is showing you the best of humanity. Or at least, a community, a group of people and humans. Whatever. Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, just, I could say a whole lot more about why Gridlock is so good, but yeah, it's really good. Anyways, number 2, I'm not even gonna spend time on this episode, because you know why it's good. Number 2, I have Blink. I nothing I can say about Blink can just tell you the greatness of this episode. It's really good. It's one of the best episodes of Doctor Who. It's the best episode to really introduce somebody to the show. It's that special it's that one episode that's just like, yes, like I don't know what it is with Blink. It's just like that one episode that's like, yes, this is what's special about the show. Like, I don't know, it's just something about Blink is just it adds something to the show. The collective all the collective episodes, it's a unique episode. It feels really special. It feels really like, I don't know how to explain just how good Blink is. It's Blink. What are you gonna say? Like, what is he gonna say? Like, Sally, they're great. The plot is great. Comedy, dialogue, all great. Weeping Angels, one of the best villains ever. 10 is amazing in it. Martha is really fun in it. All the characters, all the side casts are phenomenal. Like the police guy, Sally's boyfriend / her friend's brother. Her friend was great. Even the guy that was flirting with the friend, I only see in like 2 scenes. He's great. Everybody's great in that episode. The story, the timey-wiminess of it, everything is great. The conclusion is so satisfying. The action, the drama, the editing, the music, the performances, just everything about Blink is Blink is Blink. What are you gonna say about Blink? It's Blink. It's just Blink. Anyways, number 1, my favorite story of Series 3. One of my favorite stories just of Doctor Who in general. Probably, I don't want to say my favorite overall in like New Who, because there are, obviously, like, you have your Heaven Sense, your like your different doctors, your Heaven Sense, your World Enough in Times, Doctor Falls, your 11th Hours, your I can't even think of like other episodes just like so top tier, like your Empty Chow Doctor Dances, your Parting of the Ways. You have those episodes that are just like, they're on just another level to where you can't really pick a specific one to be like, yes, that is the best one. But definitely in that like echelon is Human Nature, Family of Blood. It's just it's something special. That this story is something special. Um, I say it's more of a personal thing that Blink is underneath this episode, because I feel like just objectively Blink is actually better, but this episode I just have a personal connection to. I really, really, really enjoy this episode. It feels like it's just something extra special. You know, like Blink is just special, but like it's like this one is just like there's something more to this episode, this story, this two-parter that's just really, really good. The Family of Blood are amazing. Just the concept of them trying to steal the Time Lord essence energy of the Doctor so that they can live longer and stuff like that. And then like how they possess everybody, and like each one has a different person, and like it works, it kind of makes sense. And like the guy who's a brother of mine, I think he's like brother of mine, sister of mine, father of mine, and then mother of mine. It could be. I think maybe they change it so like the parents would say like son of mine and daughter of mine, and then like the I don't know. It's interesting. It's really like it's a unique take on like how you would do a family stuff, like a family, unit like that. They're just really great. They're really one of the best villains in Doctor Who. Like actually, when I think about it, they're really, really underrated. Like I'm not like when people talk about the best villains, like you have your Daleks, your Masters, your Cybermen, you have your Weeping Angels, you have your Sutex, you have your like what's another one? Your I guess people say Silence. The Silence are not that great, but I guess just popularity wise and like premise wise, Silence are up there too. Fenric. Fenric actually, I think Fenric and the Family of Blood are actually kind of in the same camp, where they're really, really good villains, but like they're pretty nobody really talks about them that much. I don't know why, but it's just that. Curse of Fenric and this story actually are really similar. Even down to probably my biggest thing with this episode that I really enjoy is it's one of my favorite characterizations of the Doctor. Just full stop. Not even of 10. Not just of all the Doctors combined. This is like one of my favorite characterizations of him. Him, her, they. Because it really, it's the one episode. Like, other episodes try, Good Man Goes to War. You have your episodes where they really try to make the Doctor seem like, just this otherworldly, godlike being. But I think this is the only episode that really, really hits it on the nail. Because, Blink, both, oddly enough, Human Nature, Family of Blood, and Blink are, technically Doctor Light episodes. You get, a handful of scenes with the Doctor in just all three of those episodes. The Doctor isn't in Human Nature and Family Blood a lot. He's in at the beginning where he's where he was running away, and he was like, Martha, do you trust me, and blah blah blah. Martha, I'm gonna, and then they cut to them being in the school and stuff, and then he occasionally they have a reference with the Doctor, and then he shows up right at the very end to defeat the Family of Blood and stuff like that. But it's he's so good in this episode. This is one of the best written versions of the Doctor just ever, because it really encapsulates just it really. It's kind of similar to how the Time Lords are written. Just series 3 is really good for writing the Time Lords, and I found something that I don't like how the Time Lords are done in almost any other series or episode. Classic Who, I'm not big on the Time Lord stuff, besides War Games. And then in New Who, you have your occasional here's a plus in series 1. They don't really mention the Time Lords and Gallifrey too much, but it still you still feel it's more the Doctor's people, and he feels sad, and stuff like that. But I really don't know. It's something special. Um, in series 1, and then series 3 is obviously the big one. But like a lot of the other series, I don't think they really hit the nail on the head when it comes to Gallifrey. And this episode is one that, like, the show very rarely hits the nail on the head when it comes to presenting the Doctor in just a special way. Um, just from how Martha talks about the Doctor to, how like the kid with the fob watch, like whenever he has like the visions of the Doctor, like he sees the Doctor special, like the whole, he burns with fire and blah blah blah, and he's wonderful, and then all that. Like I found that when you talk about somebody, or like whenever it's more like the Doctor being like an abstract, like he's very abstract. There's not like a lot of just here's the Doctor, because you don't really, he doesn't talk a lot, he doesn't show up a lot really. It's mostly just John Smith. Like throughout the episode, the story, it's mostly just John Smith and his interactions. But a lot of the Doctor stuff, like the journal that John Smith writes in about like his dreams, which are technically just memories of him being the Doctor, like that really is something special. And then you would have and then of course the ending where like he defeats the family of blood, and like he like it was like he wasn't running away because he was scared, he was being kind, and he like killed us, but he, in a way, he defeated us by making us immortal, but still defeating us, like sending us into stars and making us really good. I really enjoy it, which is funny because it's not really like Ten's Doctor. Like series 3, I feel like 10 was written a little bit differently in series 3 compared to like series 4 and 2. I feel like he was more written a little bit more human in those two series, whereas in series 3, he definitely does feel a lot more like Time Lordy. Like this episode, like this Family of Blood, I think it is an adaptation, one of them, of a Seventh Doctor story, which is why he doesn't feel very Tennant-like. I like the way the Doctor is written in this story, it doesn't feel very Tennant-like. Even in Blink, which he doesn't show up a lot in that, but he still feels like the Tennant Doctor. Even though he feels very mysterious and stuff like that, but you can still get a vibe of the Tennant Doctor from him in that. Whereas here, he feels a lot different. He feels like a McCoy Doctor. He feels like he's very different. Like he's a lot more schemy. He's a lot more devious. He's a lot. I'm not gonna say sinister. He's like a good version of sinister. Like the whole him acting as John Smith and then like having them punch him around to like press buttons here and there to like trick them into blowing up the ship and stuff like that. Like I don't know why I can't see like Tennant's Doctor doing that in any other story. Like Tennant feels a lot more like direct. He feels a lot more like he's not really a Doctor to like plot a lot. But like in this episode and really this series, like Last of the Time Lords, he's like plotting, like he's just waiting for Martha to do the whole thing so he can hack into the Archangel network. He's kind of playing the long game. He's tricking the Master into thinking he's like winning and stuff like that. So this series for Tennant is very like, he's not like that big hero character that has like a big heroic moment. He's very, very like scheming and devious, and a lot more like the Second Doctor and the Seventh Doctor. 11 is a bit weird. Like 11 he's a little bit of the schemer, but he's a little bit of the heroic, he has his big speeches like in Pandora. In the Pandorica opens and Rings of Akaton, they can still be a little bit scheming in some episodes. Like, what was the episode? There's a like series 6, like the end of series 6. Besides Wedding and River Song, he feels a lot more like the schemer, a lot more like, he's lurking. He's just kind of, in the shadows a little bit. He's plotting. He does questionable things. He's a lot more gray. Like Girl Who Waited, when he like tricks Amy into thinking that they can, he has that. It's like almost dark. Like he tricks Amy and Roy into thinking, he can bring both of them in. He lies to them to actually get, for Roy to actually bring them back, because he kind of would lack reason to, and like old Amy wouldn't help and stuff like that. So like he has to lie and trick them into doing it, and then he has the dark moment and he like closes the TARDIS door on old Amy. And then God complex when he's like telling Amy like I'm a bad guy. I'm a, you have your faith in me. He like calls her Amelia Williams, which he just never does. And it's like, oh no, and stuff like that. And he's doing it so that they can escape the Minotaur primarily, but he does feel that because obviously he leaves them at the end. But he like has to do that, especially so that Amy can lose her faith in him, so that the Minotaur can die. So 11 definitely has those moments. So like he's scheming and plotting and stuff, and 12. I can only really remember 12 doing that in like a very brief moment in Well Enough in Time Doctor Falls, when like the two masters like beating him up, and then he's kind of similar to this episode where like they were like hitting like Family of Blood, where they were hitting him, and then he was able to like go around pressing buttons that would do stuff in secret, just acting like he's getting beat up or whatever, but while he's getting beat up, he's like basically beating them. The Doctor has those moments of like plotting and scheming, which Tennant doesn't do a lot, as I said in Series 2 and Series 4. But in Series 3, and in this story very much so, he's a lot more of the behind the scenes, he's pulling strings and stuff like that. Which he does in this episode, so I really enjoy that. Of course, as I say, he just has this, just the way the Doctor is written in the story is like honestly one of my favorite versions. And of course, David Tennant's acting, I think this, in terms of just him acting, I think this was probably Tennant's best performance. Like Midnight was great, like Midnight was probably a lot more challenging for Tennant because of the whole you have to match up talking with her, and it would for it to sound natural and stuff, and like having that whole bit where like he's being possessed by the midnight creature, and then he's like, oh look at that, I'm ahead of you, and he's like crying, but he can't be crying and stuff like that. All that's great. Is like having to like act like he's being controlled, and he's like not really in control. It's a lot more challenging in Midnight, but here is really where he pulls his acting chops, just really really drags it out. Like he can really make a scene funny, he can really make a scene seem like intense and like scary, he can really make a scene seem like emotional, like that bit right at the end where like he's crying, he's like, you want me to die so this doctor can take my place, and the whole like the whole living his he imagines living his life with the nurse, but like he can't do it. It's he really like hits it right on the hit, hits it right out of the park. Acting and writing for John Smith and the Doctor, superb in this episode, like one of the best. Martha's great in it too, and it conversely, like opposite to Shakespeare Code, this is the episode where they kind of do a little bit, they make it a little bit more serious, and like they don't take out the comical element of like the racism and stuff, but it's only for like a few scenes. Obviously it's not like the whole thing is them being racist to Martha. It's not Rosa. You have like the bit at the beginning where like she's scrubbing the floor, and like the guy's like, yeah, that's what you should be doing. And then that bit where like Martha's trying to explain like that, like the like explain that he might have a concussion or whatever, and like the nurse was like, I think I know more about this than you. And then later on you have that bit again where like the nurse is like, I know more than you, and then Martha has like the whole, she tells her all the bones in the human, like the hand and stuff, which was great. Martha, by the way, I didn't mention this, but like they did a lot more with Martha being a medical student in this series, like a lot. Like you had that a lot, which poor Yaz, but like honestly, I think in terms of just her being like, I think it's probably one of the best uses of like a companion's actual like job in just the show in general. Like I think I think only like Ian and Barbara are really up there in terms of like actually like their job and like their profession being relevant to like their character and like their skill set and stuff. Like like Ian was the physics teacher, and then Barbara was like history teacher, and like she'd know things about history and stuff like that. I don't remember much about like Ian's like physics stuff, like him being a science teacher. Like I don't think that played in a lot. I don't remember it at least. But I definitely know like Barbara did a lot of like the historical elements whenever they did do a historical. I can't really think of another like episode or like story where like the actual like the skill set of the companions that comes from their job really affects what they do. I think Martha's the only one where like she really uses her like medical skills in throughout the series. Like Smith and Jones, obviously. Shakespeare Code, she has that bit where it's like she sees that he has a heart attack and he has two hearts, so she has to do the heart massage CPR thing to both sides of his chest and stuff like that. And then there's a little like subtle moment that's, as I said, Lazarus Experiment is really forgettable. I rewatched it like yesterday, so there's that moment where like she sees that Leo has a concussion. That was a really interesting moment. It's like, yeah, Martha would know. Like he has a concussion by looking at his eyes and stuff like that. That's really good. There's a really neat little way of tying that in. Yeah. And of course, this episode again, like her medical skills really come to the test, and like she really exhibits that she is a medical student. She is a doctor in training. So yeah, I really enjoy it. But and of course Martha's just great in it, and I really enjoy how like they really, I think this is one of the best ones where like they really play up like Martha loves him, but like it's impossible to love a man who can't feel like it's possible to love a god as much as like the god loves you kind of thing, which they kind of do that a little bit later, a little bit like it's similar but not to the same extent. It's not similar thematically, I guess, is Husbands of River song, where like River's like you can't expect the sunset to admire you back. It's kind of a similar thing there. Like whenever a companion who's like in love with the doctor has like romantic feelings for the doctor, and like they're talking about how the doctor can't love them, whereas this episode is like, the doctor doesn't actually love, Martha in that way or whatever, and like it's just showing like, yeah, I know he doesn't love me, but I still love him. And whereas Husbands of River song is like, yeah, the doctor loves River, like hello, sweetie. Both really good moments though, really good moments. As I said, Family of Blood are great. Nurse Redfern, she's really good. She's really good because like performance wise, she's amazing, and just. Yeah, I really can't, like, like, I can't say just how good Nurse Redfern is, but she's really, really good. Like, I came closer to crying at her, like, granddaughter's book signing thing in End of Time than even, like, Mickey or Donna, to be honest with you. Like, I actually was more, I actually got a little bit more emotional at that part than for the actual other goodbyes. Because I really enjoyed Nurse Redfern, and, like... Yeah, she was really good. I just, yeah. The head teacher guy, he was cool. Baines, as I said, like before he even was possessed by the Family of Blood, he was so cool. And as I said, the kid with the fob watch, he was great. The whole World War I tie-in of like he sees the future and is like gonna die. It's like that's really good because it's like really uplifting kind of moment. And then the ending where they go to the thing at the end. I can't remember what it's called. The Memorial Day thing where like they're like doing like the thing for the soldiers and veterans and stuff like that, and like he's sitting there with the fob watch in his wheelchair. He's old now, and then like he looks behind him, and then Tan and Martha are there with the little flower. Oh, such a good moment. And of course, I really like the setting as well. The actual setting of the school and stuff like that is really good. The historicals, setting-wise, really good in this series. I really enjoyed them. I think there's only 3 historicals, right? There's Shakespeare Code, there's the Dalek 2-parter, and there's this episode. And they're all really good setting-wise and visually. They're all stunning, and just they really use the actual setting to their advantage, more so than most other historicals and stuff like that. So yeah, I love Human Nature, Family of Blood, so good. But anyways, 2 hours later, straight talking for 2 hours. It's been fun. It's my favorite series. I mean, what can I say? I could probably have gone on longer. Yeah, this. I was series 3. I love this series. That's my ranking of it. And yeah, so just to recap. Least favorite episode: Shakespeare Code, followed by Lazarus Experiment, Daleks in Manhattan, Evolution of the Daleks, 42, Smith and Jones, the finale 3-parter, Gridlock, Blank, and Human Nature, Family of Blood. I just like that. Just that top 3, I adore, and even then, it's like the rest, the remaining 6 stories are still incredible too. Vastly underrated series. I can't. Like, if in this 2 hours I haven't convinced you that series 3 is at least top 3 in Doctor Who, and just if I haven't done that in like the past 2 hours, I don't deserve to be a Doctor Who fan. You know, I just say it. I love this series so much. Anyways, that's it for my review of Series 3. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I might do another one of these. I might do for every other series, who knows. I at least wanted to start off with my favorite series. I might do... I'm not sure which one I would do for next. Like, my second favorite series is Series 5, so I would be inclined to do Series 5 next. But I kind of want to do Series 7, which is my least favorite, or maybe Series 11, because like that's a little bit fresher in my mind, and I do have stuff to talk about in Series 11, a little bit more than like Series 7 or Series 5. Even though I do have very strong feelings for those series, I there's not as much to talk about for them. But anyways, that's it for this video. If I am gonna do another of these series reviews, which one would you like to see? Series 1. There's 10 series, you know, for me to do. So which one would you want me to see? Would you want to see me do next? But anyways, that's it for this video. Troll on. Blah blah.